Hi everyone, welcome to the first weekly update of 2021 to keep you fully informed about what is going on in the world of immigration. The most important thing I think to talk about at the moment is skilled migration versus employer sponsorship. Skilled migration is where you can apply for a visa for permanent residence on the basis of the points test. These days, it is very much dependent upon each individual state and their occupation list, because the subclass 189, which gives the opportunity to an applicant to apply for permanent residence independently without any sponsorship by a state, it requires a very high number of points, and therefore it's just more difficult to obtain an invitation and ultimately be able to apply for a permanent resident visa utilising this visa. It's not impossible, but all of these cases we need to look at on a case-by-case basis. So the majority of skilled migration applications are dependent upon the subclass 190 and the 491. The 190 being the application for permanent residence immediately, dependent upon the nomination with the state, and the 491 visa being the visa to be able to live and work in a regional area of the state. Now that could be in New South Wales, for example, a short distance away from Sydney actually, in Wollongong or Newcastle, but then you've got other regional areas, for example in the Northern Territory and South Australia, to give some examples. Now on that note then, these occupation lists are very important, and without them you can't apply for the visa. So in each state, states in the last few months have not actually been able to release their lists because they haven't been allocated numbers by the government in the wake of COVID and all of what the pandemic has created. It's been quite hard to have those places allocated, with the government focusing on many different things. What we're seeing now though is many states are coming out with their state occupation lists. So New South Wales in December came out with an occupation list, much more limited however, with occupations focusing on engineering and health occupations primarily. For the 491 visa that is outside of Sydney, there are slightly more occupations within those categories. For example, the occupation of industrial engineer appears on the 491 list and not the 190 list. Then you've got the Northern Territory. They have tightened up, they have a very extensive occupation list, but have tightened up their criteria to be able to apply. So for example, if you are onshore, you really do need to study there and complete studies there, and then have a visa that allows you to actually work for at least 6 months in an occupation to then be eligible to apply for state nomination. So that's something to be very much aware of if you are considering studying in that area, and utilising that time period to be able to apply for permanent residence. South Australia has not issued its state occupation list yet at this time. Tasmania has, and there are some very interesting things for those who study in Tasmania, and there are still options for those who study a certificate for example. Whilst that criteria has become slightly tighter, there are quite good options for students studying there, but it is really important to bear in mind that each case is unique and specific, and before you decide to go and study in these areas, as I just mentioned, it's so important to determine what benefit that's going to bring to you and to your case, and also to think of employment opportunities in these areas. So on that note, employment. It's all about the jobs right now, and more so than ever before. Yes, skilled migration exists as an opportunity, but employer sponsorship is becoming increasingly important. And you may have heard of DAMAs, the Designated Area Migration Agreements in various regional parts of states that are a form of sponsorship for employers to sponsor certain occupations that may not be on any other lists. But there are also still opportunities available through the TSS 482 visa, the 494 also, which is a form of sponsorship in a regional area. And we're seeing a lot of those visas coming through very, very quickly. Within a matter of weeks, they're actually being approved. So employer sponsorship is really key. It's another way to obtain permanent residence. And there are many employers out there who, despite the pandemic and so on, are still very much sponsoring within Australia. So that's just what I just wanted to give a brief overview of what is happening at the moment, and we'll bring you another weekly update next week. Thanks very much, everybody. Stay safe and have a great week ahead.